Good afternoon. It's my great honor and pleasure to host this particular panel, investment in AI longevity. My first question will be to Benjamin Brigade, representing actually the most well-known venture longevity fund, in particular the National Longevity Vision Fund. The name speaks for itself. So my question is probably a little bit complicated in the sense that today we saw the evidence that science and technology, applying data science, big data analysis, additional terms, for what could be considered as longevity, is already here or close to be here. However, we also do see that there's between the AI for longevity and the AI for healthcare. There's a balance of investments in the AI for healthcare. We do not see something like that yet in the AI for longevity. My question is, consider that, for example, you invested in Civic, both your funds. What do you think? Is AI for longevity the next big thing for investments in particular?
Two questions to correspond with. So I think, first of all, at Juvenescence, we're a drug development company, first and foremost, so that is our primary aim. We're obviously very excited by the longevity space, and our kind of mission is to improve health span, not just lifespan. So with that kind of lens on it, what we're really looking to do with the AI space is look for technologies that can help us treat diseases of aging very broadly defined. Now, you mentioned Insilico, it's one of the few companies out there that focused on the aging space. From our perspective, we're interested in AI technologies or highly curated data sets that maybe that hasn't yet been applied to longevity. I think that's the fundamental gap that we've got there. There are a lot of great companies out there in the AI space. There are a few in the data science space, but I think we're slowly getting there with decent curated data sets. I think it's the job, certainly from Juvenescence, or at least my job, is to think about how we can apply those technologies to our drug development pipeline. So to sort of give a 30-second version of your answer, we're beginning to get there. We're not fully there. There's not 150 companies just doing AI for longevity, but that's really because I think the technology is beginning to be there, and we just need to learn how to correctly apply it. One of the things that we've been very fortunate at Juvenescence is to have a series of very experienced drug developers, and so our job is really to pick those AI companies, to pick those drug developers and partner with them together to sort of get augmented human intelligence. We're unlikely to do a full end-to-end AI company drug discovery without any drug developers involved on the way yet. The dream is one day, perhaps, but for now, I think it's about picking and choosing what's already out there and making it work for longevity.
Thanks, Ben. So, well, first of all, I think AI. I think some of us are feeling it's a little bit like internet back in 1996, 1998. So you kind of know that the next Amazon and Google is there, but you don't really know, who they are. So, well, I think it's just an important point to understand. It's obviously a huge fundamental thing, but we just don't know how to use it, who's going to be the winner. That's number one. Number two, I think the question of AI for longevity as a small part of the bigger AI implementation comes back to a much bigger question whether we recognize aging as disease or not. So, and we are in the middle of war, and we're actually in the middle of winning the war against cancer, simply because cancer is disease. 70 to 80 billion dollars of R&D money, is brought by different type of investors, big pharma, into fighting the cancer. While until we recognize aging, and we will have regulatory and ID framework to protect any investments on aging, we will not see a lot of effort, a lot of funding, and it's not only applies to AI, but it's just much broader thing.
Thank you. I have one very specific question for you. As you're representative of one of the biggest financial institutions, so is there any particular sector, area within the financial industry, financial service industry, where integration of data science, artificial intelligence, longevity agenda can provide some very essential impact
Correct. And number one, thanks again, Dimitri. So I think number one, most people are wondering why a banker's here. So I think I'll bring a different lens. When Dimitri told me you get to join and it's a 6 o'clock slot, I was quite excited. From my perspective, I'm not speaking on behalf of the bank, but I am speaking on my passion for longevity. But we have a lot of parallels with banking and also what you're going through right now. Banking used to be a very product-driven type of business, very tertiary business. Now it's all about data. We're partnering up with fintechs, AI. The most critical piece for us is data, right? And what's exciting about your point, what you're looking at with longevity, is that it's not trying to cure the problem, it's trying to prevent the problem. And for me, that's critically important. I mean, I've had a lot of personal, my mom passed away a few years ago from cancer, and all this, I think, is definitely focused on lifestyle, right? So I could not be, Dimitri caught up with me, I think last week, he asked, would you want to be part of this? And I think it's extremely exciting. It's really at the nascent stages, and I think the opportunity is significant.
Great, thank you very much. As you know, on the basis of this AI-led conference room, which we announced establishing today here at King's College, during the next year we are going to establish also AI-led accelerator, which will be the home for most progressive, most disruptive, practical applications, startups, companies. And so, my question to you, as one of your investors, in that accelerator, we actually are going to accept projects within AI for biomarkers of longevity, vision transfer, neurotech, age tech, wealth tech, food tech. So it's not about only precision medicine, preventive medicine, multiple different applications. My question to you, if you would be, as an investor considered, where you will have more priorities? In what kind of startup? Because here I'm quite sure there's quite a lot of entrepreneurs, scientists who are also thinking, how their research can be applied into practice, but also this kind of considered startups. So the question is, where is the bigger appetite from point of view of investors to what type of projects do you have?
Sure. So, working a little bit back on Cuban Essence maybe to help answer the question. So we were founded a couple of years ago, and our bread and butter is developing medicines. That's our number one focus. But as the company has grown, we've sort of expanded that vision, as you said, to more of the lifestyle. We've just set up a Rejuvenescence Life division, so we're really focusing on that kind of preventative element, but also non-RX as well as RX. So in both of those situations, what we're trying to do ultimately is provide scientific evidence as to why the drugs that we're developing or the non-RX portfolio that we're developing are valid for aging. And we already have an uphill battle with defining what aging is with regulators, but what we can do now is get from my perspective, what I would like most is well-curated, longitudinal data sets that really cover crossover lifestyle choices, everything really under the sun that is just well labeled to help our ML algorithms learn and to help our drug developers develop drugs. So, the people who are looking to kind of develop companies or develop products really feel, from a drug development perspective, it's just having well-curated data to help us inform that decision-making process. The other big thing to mention is that if we're going to tackle fundamental aging, as I'm sure everyone in the room knows, it's effectively a multifactorial chronic disease. And there's not going to be one drug, and what works for me is going to be different from you, it's going to be different from half the audience membership. So if we can begin to sift that data in a meaningful manner, you can help us work out what drugs will be useful in what circumstances. I think that would go a long way to developing, from a regulator's point of view, giving them confidence. Without my Rejuvenescence hat on, previously I used to work in venture capital, I think we're developing the market here. And so there's a whole host of companies which I don't really get to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but as you mentioned, on the fintech, HR tech, lifestyle, that maybe in not the next 3 to 5 years, but certainly in the next 5 to 10 years, I'm sure that there'll be one of the next unicorns.
That's great. Thank you.
I just want to echo Lance here. We're big believers in changing people's lifestyle and habits on a daily basis, and from an investment perspective, it obviously, we're trying to find the accessible and affordable version of longevity. And so every time I talk about this, I was pointing out to Fitbit, and Apple Watch, and we have 50 million Apple Watch sold, in the world now. Fitbit with the recent Google acquisition is going to be another big thing. So any combination of AI-based personalized advice based on it's not activity tracker anymore. It's actually personalized healthcare device that we all have would be attractive, specifically in terms of our mission, making longevity accessible and affordable for everyone.
Yes.
Well, not much I can add on that, but from a banking lens, and I'm speaking on my own behalf, previously when I was in investment banking, we did quite a bit of venture capital. I know for us, our lens, it's very important that how do we commercialize it? So again, you can have the data set, but if you're going to try to secure the funding, it has to make sure that you can commercialize it. And that's going to be the critical piece from a banking lens.
Right. I will answer myself to my question. So my priority the next year. Longevity, AI, and fintech. So the product which will be able to integrate these three compounds, I think they will have very simple, model how to attract other investors, but also investments from me personally. Now, probably the last question, but maybe it's the most important question. Today in the morning, there was also kind of financial panel discussion. So, representatives of a number of financial institutions gathered and we discussed so-called social fund, how the business can also, conduct business in an ethical way. Whereas, is there at all business models which can provide something good for society, but at the same time generate profits? So, I'm quite sure, at least for me personally, that the best and most ethical way of conducting business is actually investment into prevent medical longevity. Previously, that was considered as something like longevity, actually venture philanthropy. But now I'm considering that this is one of the greatest opportunities, business opportunity. At the same time, with this business opportunity, you can provide actual most precious value to people. If you are extending their health longevity, from my point of view, it's the best, most precious product which you can deliver. And if you will be able to generate profit out of that, it's like nobody will not be able to exercise it. Do you agree with me or not? Maybe it's a difficult question because I suppose it's difficult to answer in any way, but
I think from Jim and Essence's perspective, I can answer it quite simply. We are here to help people increase their health span, and so if we can develop drugs on the market that stop people from getting Alzheimer's or sarcopenia or Parkinson's or anything that they get during the aging process, then I think we've gone some way to doing our job.
Yeah, from our perspective, this morning I was telling a story about longevity at work program that we're implementing in huge financial institution, 300,000 people, and in the course of 6 months, the employee satisfaction index just increased by 15%. And statistically, this is not my figures, it's actually from the paper published by guys from Vitality UK. People spend 1 day less in hospitals and 1 day more at work. And they're in happy and healthy state. Oh, you can disagree, this is a great thing. So I think we all benefit from that.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think if we focus on the conduct piece, we're seeing, kind of working with global multinationals, really a paradigm shift to the importance of not only conduct being the critical piece, but also the environmental and social responsibility. That's something over the past 2 years that we've seen a bigger focus on. Also making sure that conduct is the core piece for all your discussions. Like banking, I think we had some conduct issues, and now this is a critical focus going forward.
Great, thank you. Considering that we are very late, let's take 2 questions from yes. Please, short questions. I would encourage if you have like, something about investment in AI.
Sorry, to Benjamin's point, he said that what you need above all is well-curated data. I wonder if you and perhaps the other members of the panel would
comment or link that back to the issue of privacy. It's just been reported that in the United States, detailed health, non-anonymized data was delivered by the insurer to Google, and it's accessible to their employees. Fitbit's been mentioned. I've got a Fitbit, and the very first time that my insurer says we're not going to pay your claim because you got an elevated heart rate that you didn't disclose, I'm not going to be happy. It does seem to me that we're on the cusp of, yes, we could do fabulous things with this data, or the door could just slam shut.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the kind of data I was originally thinking about was more surrounding sort of single cells and molecular data. So the sort of privacy issues may not be so relevant there. But to your point about the behavioral issues, it's obviously an issue. I think what we can do as companies is any work that we do these that has that sort of data sharing. We just have to make sure that our patient comes to us and the data that they provide is always, if not being directly beneficial for them, and sort of if they're tracking style, then clearly anonymized, so people understand what they're signing up for. Because I do think there's an element of trust. I think both parties stand to benefit greatly from the data used appropriately, to your point. It's just on the regulators and the foremost on the company to do the right thing.
Okay. Let's have one more question.
He was first.
Oh, yeah, it's probably quicker, the microphone's not turned on. If we're going to move to preventative medicine, we need validated biomarkers. So how are you going to invest to make sure that is accelerated?
I assume this question is probably will be for me. So the ones that this is our priority. First of all, priority investing in the capable products which are able to deliver in the very next several months evidence that their biomarkers are working on humans. And this is very crucial, very essential, and the techniques how we identify and validating those products is like science, investing science, behavioral science. We were developing our framework, how to assess such startups or such products during 5 years. I lost my personal money, quite a lot of my personal money in the previous years, and I was taught on my mistakes. But now we do have, I can state that we do have one of the most advanced framework to assess whether the data science products are capable to deliver actual results, not on mice, but for humans. I would like to ask to take a question from Prudential.
So I think I want to ask a probably more controversial question. All the solutions are very exciting, but they're not cheap. So we're fortunate to live in the UK with the travel support of academia, investment, and government support. But when we're talking about longevity, we that create a digital, actually widen the digital divide between the have and have-nots. We consider the social economic impact of longevity issues.
Yeah, I think someone would ask the same question about mobile phones 20 years ago, right? And it was ridiculous, I don't know, $10,000 a piece. Right now you go to the market in Shenzhen and you buy it for $9 a piece. So I think it's just, whether we want it or not, it's essential part of creation and adoption of the new breakthrough technologies. It's all start becoming extremely expensive Asian, and it's democratized and becoming affordable and accessible, and that's why our mission, we don't invest in the companies unless they have clear affordability and accessibility potential. So we just need to be patient and put things into perspective, and we'll make sure we'll work on working for the whole population rather than trying to extract the margin from the first most expensive pieces. And the same actually goes with genome sequencing, right? The first genome to sequence cost us like $3 billion in probably 3 years. Right now it's hunted over $200 for the most part of it. So it's the right question, we need to keep it in mind.
Richard So mentioned that in the beginning of February, we actually going also to organize Neratech AI Summit just here. So I'm inviting all of you to that summit. products which will be capable to apply artificial intelligence in a very tangible way for Neurotech. We are considering this is a very significant part of longevity. Neurotech and longevity is like, I would say, equal, because without brain health, this is to live longer, it won't make sense. So my point is that AI startups capable to provide the solutions, we will very much welcome you to our longevity accelerator. On the other hand, apparently, at that time we will also organize an investment panel, but it will be particular AI, Neurotech investing in brain health and brain performance enhanced by artificial intelligence and data science. Thank you very much.